So it's gonna.
Yeah. So let's get rolling. All right. Great to have you guys here with me. I got Zach Price and Brent. I always want to make sure I say your name right. Say your last name for me.
It's Foley.
Foley. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Like
yeah,
Axel.
We'll try it. Yeah, Axel Foley. It's great. I'm Ryan Henry, certified EOS implementer with Grip Business Traction up in not Ohio. I'm in Michigan. Not in Ann Arbor though. I'm in East Lansing. So glad to have you guys here. We're going to just be talking with you guys about your business, Triad. And let's just kind of kick it off with this question. I'm super curious. Like, what's your guys' story?
It's kind of funny because I just made Zach tell me his story for something we were doing the other day, but I'll jump off and Zach can jump in when we need to. So Zach and I have known each other since we were in high school, or I was in high school. Zach was the bully older brother of one of my best friends who used to boss us around and tell us what to do. But Zach's dad started Triad Architects with another guy named Clyde Henry. And I reached out to both of them recently, and they talked about why they started Triad. And it really came down to they wanted to do work that was centered around people and around integrity and helping clients make their projects come to reality. And so I happened to start as a high school intern at Triad, the second year of the firm. Because Zach's dad, Dave, gave me a internship, and I came back. That mission and that purpose of making clients' visions come into reality really spoke to me as a young person. And then I went to architecture school, and it almost ruined me because architecture school teaches you that you should design for your own ego. But I came back in 2004, and thankfully Triad saved me from that path. And just came on and started working as a project associate, then a project manager. In 2006, I went to India for 5 weeks. I took a leave of absence from Triad. When I came back, several project managers had left, and I was given the opportunity to become a project manager. And then in 2009, Zach's dad took me to lunch. I thought I was either going to get fired or get a promotion. I wasn't sure which. And he told me he wanted to bring me in as a partner, and he wanted me to partner with Zach. So I told him that Zach and I should probably talk about that. So Zach and I got a few beers and didn't talk about it enough, but decided we wanted to do it together. And so that's my story of becoming a partner at Triad. I'll let Zach maybe tell his part up to that part, and we can talk about where it's gone from there.
Yeah, you definitely got to take us up to how you end up having beers with this guy. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so I started working for Triad, when I started college. Triad started, I had been actually living on the East Coast for about a year in between high school and going back to college, and came home to start school at Ohio State, and had a brief stint where I moved back to Ohio. I was kind of living at home, and one day my dad tells me, by the way, we're starting this new company, and the headquarters are the dining room. So there were three of them in the dining room starting out, and I wasn't there really working at that point, but about a year in or so, I started working part-time as a student, and did that up until I graduated with an architecture degree from Ohio State. And at that point, I had kind of lost interest in Ohio. My hobbies took me out to the Seattle area, and I lived there for about 6 years. I worked about half that time for another architecture firm. I went to grad school, and then during the other half of the time I was working there, I worked for a company that was related to architecture, but not specifically an architecture firm. So in 2008, I got the opportunity to do quite a bit of traveling and kind of follow my passions that I had that were hobbies at the time, and ended up where I was traveling at the end of 2008. The economy collapsed. All my stuff was in storage. And at the time, as Brent said, my dad said, well, I'm kind of done with this and, ready to retire. And, I knew enough about the culture of Triad and the purpose of the company that I had this opportunity and thought, wow, this is a great opportunity. And it was an opportunity that I had actually written down on paper, 2 years earlier of where I wanted to be, but hadn't necessarily identified Triad as the specific place. So the kind of stars aligned and it was great. I moved back to Ohio, ended up kind of meeting Brent, to have a couple beers or more. And we, we're 30 years old at the time. I think I was 30, Brent was 29. And, we thought, didn't know nearly what we do now. And I thought, well, hey, we'll give this a try. What can go wrong? It was a very difficult time to take over an architecture firm. The beginning of 2009, there was not much work there at all. So, but we were young and, unmarried and, we're open to taking the risk. So.
Wow. And I just want to put a pin back for you, Zach, just for a second. You said you were traveling. Can you expound on what you were actually specifically doing when you were traveling and your life was in a storage unit?
The hobby that I had that led me out to Seattle was rock and ice climbing and mountaineering. So I moved out there originally after college just for a summer to try working as a mountaineering guide and rock climbing guide on Mount Rainier, and ended up being there for 6 years. So I ended up meeting an individual that was CFO for a big coffee company out there, probably heard of. And he was able to, had an opportunity to do some house sitting while he moved to Japan to run operations there for a few years, and thought, well, it's a beautiful part of the country. I made a lot of friends out there, but in 2008 had the opportunity to travel around the country and did an educational program with a friend that was sponsored by the Coleman Camping Company. And the purpose of it was to try and educate kids around the United States that there's something fun to do in their backyard and to get outside and be active in the outdoors. So we put together a program that was called 50 States in 50 Days. And we set a record of climbing to the highest point in every state in the country in actually 46 consecutive days, starting with Mount McKinley, now known as Denali in Alaska, and then doing the whole continental US and hitting Hawaii is the last one. So we did that in 46 days. And then I had some traveling. I had my brother and I actually had a 3-month artist and architect collaboration project kind of right after that was in the Netherlands. So we did that. So I spent most of the year really doing some fun things.
So I'm just so curious, like the highlight of high points in your travels has got to be the mountains of Ohio. Right?
You can drive up to the highest point in Ohio, actually.
Yeah,
that's a cool little pin. I love it. It's so good.
The high point in Ohio actually was able to reach that summit with my dad. It's outside of a school in the Bell Fountain area, so it's not one of the more difficult ones. It's you park your car and there's about 20 feet of paved sidewalk.
Yeah.
So.
That's so neat. I love that story. Thanks for sharing it. It's so neat. I think what's so interesting to listen to the two of you is you both have this very early involvement. One, it's right in your dining room with three guys, and then you, Zach, are just literally, Zach, like immersed in this. And then Brent, you come in your high school days. So your arc with this company is so unique. And then the founder, is stepping out and bringing this great opportunity, which is amazing leadership, just to step out of the way and create this opportunity for you guys. What a wild time to start. I mean, I remember when I was in 2008, 2009, we were on this ascent, and then it just felt like we just went, and the whole floor dropped out. You guys walked into that. That's really, what the heck were you thinking? Like, I don't even know where to go. What was you take us there? That's so interesting. We're in scary times now. Like,
I'll be honest. If Dave hadn't said that he wanted Zach to do it with me, I would have thought Dave was just trying to dump the company on me. But I knew because he was including his son in the gig that he actually believed in the idea. The drop hit us a little later. Because we're in the public sector, a lot of our our school clients, that money is allocated, and set aside. So it actually hit us hardest in like 2012. I think, Zach, is probably our lowest year. But I think we were young and naive enough to think that we could tackle the world. And I mean, what an amazing opportunity. I mean, for me, at 29 years old, to take over and become a leader of a firm that had established institutional big work, big portfolio. And like I said, it was something I believed in. The work, it was something I believed in. When I came back to Triad initially in 2004, and I walked in the door, it was like coming home. I had been sending portfolios and resumes out to San Francisco, and because all my friends were going there. That's where architects were supposed to go, San Francisco or New York or something. And I didn't think I would come back to Columbus, and then I walked in the door and I interviewed with Dave, Zach's dad, and it felt like, it was just a conversation, and it was like, I said, okay, I'll take the job. How much does it pay? And he said, how much do you want to make? And I gave a number, and he said, okay. And I was like, man, I should ask for more, but it didn't matter because it was, it felt like where I should be, at the end of the day. So I think that then when he asked me to become a partner, it just made sense. This was my journey, and this is where I was supposed to be. And I was so aligned with the work we were doing. And I actually saw it also as an opportunity. Initially it was achievement, but then it was an opportunity to do more, in the community. I saw the work we did. I kind of had this idea that could become a platform to do more. And it really has become that for both Zach and I, and for some of our other leaders in the company, where we just become really ingrained in the communities we work with, with schools and things like that. And now we're doing things like reinvesting dollars in those communities with development work. And I saw that same entrepreneurial spirit in Zach, the ability to just be willing to take the risk. So thankfully we were both risk takers, I guess, is the thing that happened.
Yeah. So can you, Zach, kind of just, so for everybody listening to this, it's going, all right, these guys got some really cool stories. I want to have Zach take us hiking and stuff. I love that stuff, but I just don't want to die. So maybe you could help us not die when we go out hiking. But when it comes to this firm, how do you explain what you do? What is it you specifically do? Just main and plain, Zach. How do you say it? So we all can hear that.
Well, we help our clients realize their visions, and they're unique. So, we treat every client as a new project. It's really listening to the client and the community that they're in, and and understanding what their needs are. And one of the projects that really, I think, early projects that exemplifies what we do is, Brent mentioned we design a lot of schools, and there was a school in a community that was potentially going to be torn down because the way the school funding worked, and they needed, improvements to the school. There was, outside of the community, a lot of pressure to tear these buildings down. They were buildings that were built in the early 1900s, had a huge historical significance to the community. They had been constructed by a very wealthy benefactor, and that had traveled the world and filled them with artwork and just phenomenal historical public schools. But we actually worked really hard and even had to lobby at the state level to change the funding model in order to save those community schools and renovate them. So, it was really about listening to the community and kind of honoring their heritage and creating a unique solution for them. And I think that's carried forward with all of the work that we do. And it is really about listening. So, as we mentioned, we took over in 2009, and for a while there wasn't much work. So we had to get pretty creative, and we ended up creating work for ourselves. So, it was, again, a bit of a risk, but we started buying some historic, distressed buildings and putting together development deals to renovate those and lease them, and it create, architectural work for us. And the way we looked at those was really, hey, here's a really cool building that needs some work, and this could be a great community asset, and nobody else is doing it. And well, frankly, we didn't have a lot else to do because there wasn't much work. so we
I love that
decided,
you took
what the
risky
heck?
things and mitigated the risk by doing riskier things. I love it. That's so good.
Yeah.
Well,
So you guys do architecture, and you're involved in actual developing and owning and retaining the buildings you actually design as well. So there's a more than just architecture to you
Well,
guys.
and that's what I love about how Zach answered that. When you asked him what we do, he didn't say architecture, right? He said, making the visions happen. And what we realized, and what we've recently realized and helped solidify with your help, Ryan, is that doesn't mean just architecture. It means development. It actually means construction, and all those services can help realize clients' visions, and that's really what we do. It's not just the architecture part of it.
Yeah, so for those that don't know me, my background is in real estate development, construction, and tangentially, that's how we all kind of got to know each other. We were functioning in the same circles, a lot of historic, a lot of adaptive reuse. So when you're talking about saving schools, and I think about schools that were torn down in my area that were just beautiful mid-century moderns that could have been kept, but the funding mechanisms didn't work. I'm like, wow, this is way more than architecture for you guys. You guys are really passionate about place and really passionate about the people in those places. And I can tell that manifests itself. It's just more than architecture and the services you provide. But Brett, you were talking about like the stuff that just kind of comes out of you that's really core to who you guys are. Can you kind of expound on that?
Ask that a different way for me.
What's all this stuff you were talking about that wasn't construction, wasn't real estate development, wasn't architecture that you do in the communities?
Well, so really what we've come to realize is that what has led us to success since Zach and I have taken over is real investment in the community. And so that means investment of time. So for instance, Zach is on the chamber, the Main Street Delaware, the Rotary Club, and everything in his community, and he knows and has invested all of his time in his community. I had previously done that in another community I lived in, and have started to do it in the place I've moved to now our former business partner, Bob Gibson, has done it in his community of Westerville. And it's about becoming ingrained in the culture and the communities that we work in. And then it's also become, because we do investment, the real estate investment, sometimes we can actually reinvest dollars that public entities pay us into development in those communities, which is a really interesting thing. And it's just about, it's funny because Zach was just having a conversation with our team about profitability, and he asked me, how does being profitable contribute to our purpose and our mission? And I said, well, being profitable allows us to reinvest in our people and the communities of our clients, and that's what we see it as. It's not just about the money. Of course, we want to be successful. We want to make money. We want to take care of our families. But we want to be able to take care of our people's families, and we want to be able to take care of the families and the communities we work in. And that's what drives me personally. And that's how I see this platform.
Wow. It's a beautiful life cycle of how you reinvest, both altruistically because you just care, this is where you live, this is where you guys are from, and financially, which is benefiting not only yourselves but the community at large and the people you work with. So cool. Such a neat structure there. You guys have some really neat vision with what you want to see happen. With all that being said, how do you from this time that you guys started together to now, what do you feel like you've been learning? What have you learned on this journey?
I'd say it's really about kind of listening to the client and the community's needs. And that has really helped us grow the business or businesses. I think a good example of that is, we have a client right now where they put out a request for proposals for architects to help them design some renovations to a facility that they had. And we were shortlisted to go interview for the project. And actually Brent went to that interview, and they asked, well, why should we hire Triad architects? And I think he said something like, well, really, you shouldn't even hire an architect for this project. Here's what you should do.
I'm so interested where this goes.
Here's another tool that we have available where, you can have an architect on the project, but we have these relationships with and a mechanism to complete this project as a turnkey solution, and we can get it done quicker and at a better cost without sacrificing the quality of that. And that's ultimately where the project went, and it worked great. And so the next project that client had was a brand new ground up elementary school. And that, of course, the best method to deliver that project was a different way, but it was really listening to about, okay, what's the best methodology here, and approaching each project, each client, each community differently.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really good.
That's the really lesson. Good. That's the lesson,
yeah.
Right? Remembering why we do what we do, right? Rather than getting caught up in what we do. If we had just been caught up in what we do, I would have tried to pitch them on architecture. And we may or may not have gotten the project, but it wouldn't have been the success it was, and it wouldn't have built the relationship that it did with them. And I think that's currently remembering that, especially in difficult times, and keeping focused on that. And then also trying to push that down and make sure all our people remember that and understand that, because we hire, and most of our team is made up of people with architectural backgrounds.
Sure.
And so they see and do things the way they've done things because they're architects, right? And they're very talented and they're very passionate about the work, and they do care about our clients, but helping them remember that it's what is the best way to get this vision where it needs to be, what's the most cost-effective way, what's the way that's going to help the most people, is the constant thing that we're trying to reinforce with our team. And so the lesson learned is just, I think our job as the leaders of the company is to keep that in mind and keep the team inspired in that way, and not just focus on what we do and, efficiencies and standards and all those things. Those things are all important, but they're there to support the clients, not support us.
That's really good. I'm thinking as my former real estate developer construction self and saying, man, at face value, when you said we do all three, I went, oh, that wouldn't have been somebody I historically maybe have worked with because they kind of do everything in-house. And listening to you, what I realize is you offer those services as a help first, if that is the right solution. But if it's not, and there's a different way, then you're going to plug in a different way. So a contractor could be your ideal client because maybe that contractor is looking for a turnkey solution that an architect that actually understands construction. Hear me out, contractors, right? How many architects do you struggle with that don't understand construction? And then you understand the ROI component to architecture and where the value adds are, right? So you actually, if you're in the owner's box, you own real estate, you know where the right investments are and where you can put the right pieces. So you can speak to that even though you're not the owner of the real estate when you're serving a real estate developer.
You just nailed it on the head, Ryan. You just exactly said it.
And I've been working with you guys for a little while now, and that just clicked for me. That's brilliant sauce. I love it. That's really, really good. I'm curious, as an architectural company, that's what you guys learn from a delivery of services. I want to go to you two. So Zach, I'm thinking of you as an entrepreneur, and Brad, I'm thinking of you as an entrepreneur. Come on, go there. What have, like, you as an entrepreneur, what do you feel like you learned?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I have to learn something new every single day.
Yeah.
I've really, I guess for better or worse, I get interested by a lot of different things. I mean, there's a lot of shiny objects I could chase every day, and sometimes that is actually a challenge, but I think we are a very entrepreneurial company. We pursue the clients that we feel like we align well with, and projects that we get excited about. So I guess, what I've learned is, it helps to take risks, kind of pursue these projects as long as they're aligned with your core values, right? And we really have those, I think, documented pretty well, and kind of look at those and with each project, and try and understand the risks. We try and of course mitigate the risks, and try and stay on track as to we're doing these different projects that are all unique, but there is a common thread between all of them. So
I think to compound on what Zach just said, when we first started as owners, there was a couple opportunities we missed, and I think we missed them because we were having a little bit of an identity crisis. We looked at what our competition was doing, and rather than being who we were, we said, oh, well, we're going up against this firm. We need to try to outdo that firm by being them in the interview, which was not authentic, which was not real. That particular client I'm thinking of, Zach probably knows which one I'm thinking of, eventually became a client once we refocused on who we were and got ingrained in what they were doing and showed them what we offered. They actually became a client. They become a good client and a big client. So that was the big lesson learned for me. I was trained as an architect. I knew how to manage projects. I knew how to get them done profitably. I knew how to get them done right. But I didn't know how to sell them. And at some point along the way, the person who was responsible for business development and sales left the firm, and it was me and Zach and our former partner, Bob Gibson, who's now a project manager for us at the time. We all looked at each other and said, who's going to do sales and business development? And they both looked at me and said, you are, Brett. And I had never done it, right? And so, we learned a lot of those lessons. And at the end of the day, we stopped selling to everybody to give them what they wanted. We realized that we needed to sell who we are, and people who align with that are gonna see it. And it's been exciting over the last 3 to 5 years to really see it build, and really get to where it's gotten now, because we have clients that are aligned with it. To Zach's point, we have clients that understand and value what we want and are loyal. I mean, and the way we did it was by going back and looking at the successful clients, understanding why they were successful, the stories that we've been telling, the greenfield schools that Zach was talking about in the beginning, the design build opportunities, other projects like Westerville City Schools, who's been a client for 20 years. You know,
Wow.
What was the Delco Water, who's been a client since like day one? What were the attributes of those clients? And that's what it was. We were listening to them and solving their problems, and we did it a certain way. And so we know that that's the type of people that align with us. And so it doesn't mean we don't talk to everybody. We talk to everybody. But we don't. I used to beat myself up at every project we lost, and I used to get so mad at myself. And now I realize, well, we're not supposed to do every project. We're supposed to do the projects that are right for us. And that was the biggest lesson learned. You know, I saw it as a defeat whenever we lost a project, and it's really not. It's just, you know, it's funny because founding partner Clyde Henry used to talk about how sales was like dating, and I used to laugh at him, but it's so true. You don't want to date every girl. You want to date every girl that's right for you, you know? So
I hope people are listening. There's some serious wisdom coming out of these two right now. Yeah, this is really good.
So that was the biggest lesson learned for me as an entrepreneur.
You know, and Zach, you both are hitting on the same big learning lesson, and that's a big bingo, which is you're using your core values. Well, you're using them, right? Most in EOS, we say we're actually going to use the core values. A lot of people just talk about them, but they don't actually do anything with them. We specifically teach to hire people based on core values. And then if we have to, fire, because you're like, we love you, but you're not like us. And you're driving us crazy. And we're probably driving you crazy too. And we think there's a place for you, but it's not here. And then we hold people accountable according to core values. But you took it to that next level, which is really cool. You said we started analyzing our clients on our core values. So I'm just really curious, you know, can you tell us, well, what are your core values? Maybe we got people listening going, I want to work with these guys. Maybe it's a client, developer, contractor, school, who knows? That's what you're trying to find, people like you. So who are you guys? What do you guys like?
I feel like I should quiz Zach and see if he can remember the core values as we actually.
Well, either of you can do it. It doesn't matter. It's all good.
Well, our core values as they're listed are, and help me out, Zach, if I forget one, authentic. We believe we're authentic, and we believe we bring honesty and realness to our relationships. We're passionate. We bring passion to everything we do. We're loyal. So we're loyal to our clients, just like we hope they're loyal to us. We're analytical. So we analyze problems for clients. And we come up with solutions that are based on what they need and not what we think. We're communicators, meaning we try to communicate those solutions. And there's one I'm missing, Zach. What is it? I can't remember. Put me on the spot, Ryan. I feel like
passionate.
I said passionate. I can't remember which one.
Authentic, passionate, loyal, adaptable.
Adaptable. That's the one I missed. That's the one I missed. Adaptable, right? And so that's the story that Zach was telling about going into that interview with that client and moving to this because that's what they needed. Yeah. So those are our core values.
Yeah. So for those of you listening, did you see how they just honestly told us their stories, right? Just coming out of them. So if you're like really honest, you're going to love these guys because they're honest too. Loyal. I mean, this is family. These guys are friends, right? There's nothing harder to do than be in family business and have friends in business. And well, you guys have both. And you're committed to working through that. That's phenomenal. I'm just going to speak some life into this. Analytical. I've worked with these guys. These guys are thinkers. Zach's a big thinker. He's got spreadsheets and he's a very unique visionary because he actually builds them and makes them. I just want to look at them and tear them apart. But these guys are thinkers. They go deep into this. If you haven't picked up that these two are passionate, I'm not sure that you were paying attention to the interview so far. You hit it on the head about adaptability. You offer all these things, but you never push these because you're just listening and going, nope, not here. Oh, this is it. And you're even willing to say, you think we're the right fit, but we don't think we are.
Right.
That's amazing. It's huge.
It's
Anything
also,
go ahead.
yeah, I think one other lesson learned to that too, the flip side of it is you got to be open as well, because sometimes you see something that doesn't look like a great opportunity. But if you don't, probe a little bit, get to know the client, get to know the person, you actually may just get to know the surface, and they underneath might be a great opportunity. Westerville City Schools was one of those. Bob Gibson, who was the client or the former partner who manages that now, when their business manager came in, he was an architect, and he was like, oh, I don't want to work for an architect. That doesn't make sense. They become one of the best clients. It's an amazing. So at first glance, they may not have fit what we thought was our ideal client. So taking a little bit of a risk and probing into clients is also important. I don't, and I think that's the entrepreneurial balance, right? Is understanding, there was a recent opportunity this week that I looked at, and one of our employees was like, is this in our wheelhouse? And I said, I don't know, maybe, but here's what their vision is. And it seems to align with this community. I'm willing to talk to them, give them a proposal, and see how they react, and then judge based on their actions, not just on the surface,
It's really good. Like, how do you guys see the future? Like, we're in scary times right now. That's what Dan Sutherland, the strategic coach, calls it. And you guys don't sound that scared. What are you guys drinking over there? What are you guys doing? What's going on?
Well, the time that we took over the company wasn't a great time. So, I think we're fortunate to be as young as we are in the situation where we've actually had to kind of lead the company through this before. And I don't think we were in as good of a position at that point as we are now. So, we do a lot of, trying to project out into the future and, look into the crystal ball. But, I think it's trying to understand the risks that will, potentially come up down the road and looking at how to mitigate those. And I think because we started where we did, we've planned for it. And we have contingency plans. So we're not, certainly we're in a business that is or can be affected greatly by the economic conditions, but I think we're well prepared for that.
We've also rallied the team kind of towards our goals. Our economic forecast for the company for at least the conceivable future looks good. But in an effort to make sure it stays good, we've got all of our project managers now helping mine opportunities and build relationships. We're building the proposals with them, so there's buy-in all the way, and they can build continued relationships with them. We're doing a lot of research to understand things. We're changing our strategies to use things like Zoom more to connect with clients and things like that. So, we're pivoting and we're trying to figure out how to continue to sell no matter what the environment is. And I think that it's exactly what we've talked about. As long as we stay true to who we are and what we're about, we're going to find people out there who have opportunities, who will align with us and who will be willing to use us rather than somebody else because of that alignment.
I love how knowing who you are and being comfortable with that makes you clear on your future. Your confidence level of knowing what the future looks like because you know what you're looking for. You know what you want.
Yeah.
Talk a lot about that in EOS. You go, what do you want? Right? So what do you guys want? What do you want?
I've talked too much, Zach. I'll let you go.
Well, I mean, to have fun, really. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, we really enjoy working with, I mean, we take quite a bit of time in trying to find clients that we really want to work with. I mean, we will, you know, identify a client and say, wow, they are awesome. I mean, who are they working with, and why isn't it us? And I mean, we try and really understand them. And I mean, I think when we do that, and you know, our values and our visions align, then it's not really work for us. I mean, it's fun. I mean, we're creating and building something together. So I mean, we do, you know, we have these different things, you know, whether we're doing design or managing construction or looking at the finances of how to develop a project. It's, you know, it's about doing something that's exciting and building community and camaraderie. So.
Yeah, I mean, and to expand on that, I want people, when they think of Triad 10 years from now, 20 years from now, to think about what a company, look at the impact they've had on community, look at the things they've done. And I said Triad on purpose. I didn't say Zach or Brent, you know, and I want to, like some of the former partners of Triad, I want to come back and work for the future owners of Triad and see it, you know, and be a part of it forever. And I want people to see and believe in the impact we've had, you know, that legacy, you know, ultimately. There's some people in the firm that we've hired over the last couple of years that have really showed amazing things, that are very young. And I'm just like, I could see that person being an owner of Triad someday, and I'd come back and work for them, you know, kind of thing. And that to me is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. There's that quote, you're not a leader until you can produce a leader who can produce a leader. And that usually takes about 15 years. So you guys aren't going anywhere. You guys have been together for a long time, and you see yourselves in the future with a long run. And I just think it's cool that you even see yourselves delegating even potential ownership over to others. So if you're I gotta just say it, if you're a young architect and you're like, I really want to work at a place that's really gonna try to make a big dent in the universe, like Steve Jobs talks about, and maybe you should talk to these guys. I think they got something going on here that's pretty unique. My experience with you guys in implementing EOS has taught me many things. I'm just curious for you guys in the journey that we've been on for a little over a year now. And things are a lot different than when we first started EOS together. What have you learned in that run?
Oh, man.
Well, to be honest with you, Ryan, I mean,
we would want to know nothing else.
I hated it when we started. I mean, I thought it was the worst.
Now he's really being
worst
honest.
thing ever. I mean, it took a while, and I think the one thing that it does do is it really kind of forces us all around a table and to be open and honest with each other, to get these issues out in the open and kind of get all on the same page and figure out, you know, what our values are, what our goals are, and how to move forward. And I think, you know, EOS for us, it's really kind of provided the structure for us that at both being visionaries, I, you know, think has been very important for us, as particularly as we've grown larger.
Yeah. So when Zach says visionaries, just a little commentary, and then Brett, you can roll. Visionaries are entrepreneurs, leaders that have big ideas. They just don't stop. So if you're listening, you're like, ooh, I do that. And for those listening, go, oh, I know who you're talking about, my team. They love big relationships. They just have kind of crazy big relationships. They make big sales, but they're not selling just to people. They're selling the company. And if you can't catch that from these two, again, they're selling big time about just who they are, right? To all kinds of people. They love R&D. They got a pulse on the industry that's kind of no other. They love culture. Yeah, you're picking it up. These guys that we're talking to are both visionaries, which was not an easy balance to ride either. So you got family, friendship, two visionaries at the helm of the company. Vision without traction is hallucination. So got a lot of vision. We just need to bring a lot of traction in. What are you learning, Brett, since we started this?
Well, so it's interesting you make the transition to traction, part of that. And so the idea that it's okay to be a visionary and you don't, your contribution can be different as a visionary has been huge.
Yeah.
And Zach and I, and it's because we trust each other so much, we've operated as two visionaries for a long time. And we just, when decisions had to be made, we just made sure we agreed and we made the decisions, together. But, as you know, we've made some recent changes. I was originally sitting in the overall visionary seat. We put Zach in there and I've shifted into the business development seat. But that's because it's what made sense for the company, and so learning that, it was good, and having that structure, but also, Zach's a weird visionary in a different way. I'm a weird visionary that I'm incredibly OCD, and Zach will tell you that. And so like, I crave structure to help keep me from going insane. And so the accountability that comes with scorecards and rocks has been really good for me personally. The lesson learned is how to help the team understand how that's contributing to the vision, right? People early on in EOS, people were seeing scorecard and rocks as something extra, right?
Yeah.
And so learning that it's not something extra, it's just basically codifying what you do and giving you a way to understand whether you're getting better at it, right? At the end of the day.
That's so good.
Yeah. And so that getting there helped, and I think that's working its way into others with LMA roles. We now do have a situation where everybody is participating in L10s. Everybody has a scorecard item. Everybody has a rock every quarter. So it's hard, but it's also fun to see that process. And, there are challenges on some days where people don't understand why we're asking them to do things. And so we have to make sure we're understanding, building the buy-in. But I think that structure of it has been hugely helpful, and just giving me a way to, after I've done the big thinking and come up with the idea of what this is what I should be tracking, to just jump into it and do it, and have guardrails as a person who is a visionary, but have some guardrails to make sure that I'm also being effective and helping the team where I can help the team most.
Wow, that's good. There's a lot you just said there. A couple things for everybody. LMA means leading, managing, and holding people accountable. That's the first role of anybody that leads a team. They got to take responsibility and lead that team, manage that team, and leadership plus management equals accountability. L10s, he's talking about meetings there. Think about your meetings, rate them 1 to 10, 1 being horrible and 10 being amazing. We're trying to run weekly, same time, same place, same agenda meetings with that team that would look like a 10. Like, that was a 10, that was amazing. And if you're like, my meetings suck, we go, yeah, we know. That's why EOS is so helpful. If you're trying to start figuring out what EOS is, just a qualifier, it's an operating system, how you manage the vision and clarify, align it, how you hire people, how you have meetings, how you train people, how you just, you take human energy and try to align everybody to go in the same place, to clarify the vision and get buy-in, to get that vision into the ground and actually brings traction. It's also why these two are getting real excited still during this scary time. They're not slipping. They're actually seeing the vision lived out day to day. And then just get healthy, right? And I just got to say this, if you're in a family business and you're going, how the hell they do this? And if you're in a business with friendship, you're going, that's hard. And if you go, I think my partner's a visionary too, those in and of themselves are challenging things. These guys got it in spades, and they were just fantastic to get going with. You guys were great. And you worked through some really hard stuff. To really, just proud of you, just as your implementer, to see that health rise up, and you guys walked through the real tough things that you walked through. And for those, I'm going to hand the mic back off to Zach. Zach not only hated it, he actually was the guy that was supposed to pay me at the end of the day. So every time I drove to Columbus, I was just thinking, man, I want to find a breakthrough for Zach. And I hope it works, because I might be just doing this for free. Because that's our guarantee. If it doesn't work at the end of the day, don't pay us. So Zach, I don't want to let the goose out, but when we came in, you weren't the visionary, and you weren't really telling us who you were. Talk about that process of not only acknowledging being a visionary, but then transitioning to being the visionary, the leader of this whole company.
Yeah, I mean, part of it was, I think, building up over a long period of time. I mean, I had, come back to Triad and was, we're a certain size, and then we had to kind of shrink a little bit, and grew out of that. And, I think through that process, probably, similar for any entrepreneurial company, is the leaders or founders have to do whatever it takes to keep things moving. And what it took for a number of years was for me to be more of a kind of financial business administrative role. And coming into EOS, I kind of naturally was elected for and fell into that seat, which is something I can do okay, but it's not something that I necessarily love or.
I'll give you some credit. You're in like the top % of finance and admin leaders that I've worked with. And I work with a few, so he's pretty good, folks. Keep going.
But I mean, I think my natural tendency is that I'm, pretty entrepreneurial, always exploring kind of new ideas. And, I mean, finally coming into that seat was, it was a natural role. I mean, it feels like, okay, wow, this is really where I should be, and where I have the ability to really move the needle further than before. And I'm lucky that we're at a point where we've been able to kind of identify these other seats in the company and try and find people that are better suited for those seats. So.
That's great. So you watched that same transition, Brett, and now you're seeing your partner sitting in that visionary seat. Just the experience that you could learn from that. I feel like we'd be remiss not to just have you, kind of as we start to end this interview, just share with us.
Yeah. I mean, it's been really cool to watch. Zach, it's family business, friend business. Zach is basically like a brother to me. I mean, I spend more time with him than most of my family. So, I mean, it's a business relationship partnership is a lot like a marriage, right? It's a lot like that kind of partnership. And so, to see Zach's growth over the last 2 years, and when I say growth, it wasn't growth in skill sets. It was growth in understanding what he's good at, what he's not good at, what he wants, what he doesn't want, right? And really just doing that has been really cool as somebody who really cares about Zach to watch, and, so now what's interesting, what was interesting is everybody put me in the visionary seat when they put him in the finance seat. And I kind of, made sense. And I was aching to get out of the sales seat at that time when I was sitting in the business development seat. And now, having gone through this journey with Zach and seeing him move into the visionary seat, that allowed my decision to get back into the sales seat with no problem, because I knew he was the right person to be there. And so that was really cool to watch. And it's also fun now. I mean, Zach's very frustrated because we don't have an integrator, right? So he's having to be a visionary and an integrator. But to hear Zach say, I got to do this right now. I'm not the right person to be doing this. It should be what I'm doing. You know, it's just the self-awareness that he has is really cool to see. And it motivates him. I mean, he's been spending a lot of time trying to find that integrator, you know, and fill those other seats that need to be filled, because he's filling them right now because he has to, you know, and so the clarity for both of us, I just think, is huge right now on the direction. That's been awesome to watch and to experience along the way. And it's fun to start to see some of the other folks in the firm, little light bulbs are starting to go off for people. The early adapters are hopefully leading to the early majority here, and as we lead the team forward. You know?
Yeah. So I've been kind of lacing this, like, hey, if you're interested, you know, you should talk to these guys. So I just want to clear the air. You guys are looking for an integrator, and there's some leadership team seats potentially open. Great leadership is just providing the opening. For those of you who are like, what's an integrator? That's the person that integrates the vision and brings it down to the ground and leads the major functions of the business. They lead, manage, and hold accountable the major functions: sales, marketing, ops, finance, and admin. They're typically more analytical. They remove obstacles and barriers on the day-to-day. They're spending their time 80% in the business, managing people, 20% of the time leading, where visionaries are leading the company 100% of the time. Typically, visionaries aren't really good at managing people day-to-day. So if you're a visionary and you're going, there's another seat, I could have somebody run all this stuff. Yeah, it's called the integrator. They create a self-managing company for you. If you're sitting in both, I affectionately call that the Visionator, half human, half robot, because you're alive to who you really are, and you're trying to bring some sort of discipline and mechanization to your life. So just know there's two leaders in all great entrepreneur companies. EOS just helps you clarify them. So is openings, guys. If you're interested, by the way, there's openings in the leadership team of this company. You know, I think what's just listening to you guys is your passion for people and your desire to truly listen to each other and listen to who you work with not only affects your clients, but probably because it affects you guys. You guys were passionate about each other and working with each other. You guys listen to each other, and you guys transform the seats and transform your lives. And I suspect that's actually the truth that rings through all your relationships, because it's so healthy here. So I love working with you guys. It was been really good for Zach not to hate me. I thought he hated me for a while. And then start to see this come alive. Not easy. EOS is not complex, but these tools force you to make some pretty hard decisions, like transition out of the overall leadership of a company. It's a pretty powerful story that you guys are on so far. I'm super excited to see where we go over the next couple of years. And I'm just curious, as we kind of land the ship, for anybody out there listening, is there anything you'd like to just kind of, hey, I just want to make sure you heard this from me? You know, anything you'd like to, anybody listening to this, you'd want to have hear from you as we close?
I think we said most of it, but I will say to hit your point, we are looking for an integrator, and we do have two director positions open: director of construction and director of development.
I think we know why you're sitting in the sales and marketing seat. It's great.
The integrator and the director of construction are the two key ones that we need to fill first. So if you're interested, email me.
Great. That's fantastic, Zach. Anything you wanted to tell anybody as they're listening?
I would just encourage anybody that, you know, is looking to start a company or leading a company, just to not be afraid of taking risks. I mean, certainly understanding those risks is important, but I think life's just too short to, not take risks and try new things and enjoy it.
It's interesting, Zach. I think when you think about your journey with EOS, moving into EOS was a risk for you, right? That you had to come to terms with, and it's paid off so far.
Yes, I agree. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. How do people get a hold of you? So in case somebody's listening and goes, man, can I just share my story with you, where I'm at? Maybe there's somebody out there, you're like, man, I'm just working with them. I just want to talk to them about where I'm at. Is that okay? Would you guys talk to any entrepreneur out there? Maybe he's struggling. Maybe he's got something they want to talk to you about.
I think we're both happy to talk with whoever, honestly.
Cool. How do people get a hold of you? What's a great way to get a hold of the two of you?
So the best way is, through Triad Architects, TRIAD Architects. You can look us up online. All of our contact information is available there. Our email address is company phone number or personal cell phone numbers are there. So.
Oh, cool. Great.
TriadArchitects.com.
Guys, absolute pleasure. Thanks so much. It was wonderful spending time with you, hearing your guys' stories.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. It was good to see you too, and great conversation.